Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Fire Marshal Files. I'm your host, Josh Owens, Deputy Fire Marshal here with the City of Lexington. We've got a very special guest with us today, our very own Fire Marshal, Chief Laura Ryggs. Chief, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So today we want to talk about something that's important to our business owners, and that's the fire code and understanding those, and specifically what business owners can do to keep their businesses safe. Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit, Chief?
Absolutely. So first of all, our main concern is safety. Not only for the business owners, but also their customers coming in and out and their employees.
And so when we go out, we do fire prevention inspections, but we use what's called the fire code. Can you elaborate for our viewers what the fire code is and why that exists?
Yes. So the fire code is actually retrofitted. That means that normally the codes are written because something did happen. Prevention is obviously trying to be proactive from a reactive code. So we want to try to make sure that as we go in these businesses that they're as safe as possible so that we don't have a repeat of instances and write more codes.
So you mentioned past incidents, so things like the Beverly Hills Supper Club, the Triangle Shirtwaist, Station Nightclub, and even our own Imperial Foods fire down in Hamlet, North Carolina, things like that generate code advancements as they happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
So like with the Imperial Foods fire back in 91, they had some hydraulic issues, but what came out of that was there was some locked exits to prevent staff from stealing, and I believe there was some issues with communication. The owner actually had to drive to the fire station. It caused a big loss of life because the employees couldn't evacuate because of those locked exits. And that's something we see quite a bit, right, is locked and blocked exits?
Yes, there was actually padlocks on those exits on the outside, so the employees inside could not get out. I think that fire taught everybody a lot. And so that is one of our main concerns is exits being unblocked and unlocked. We will go to every one of the exits and make sure that they do open and that they open with little force. You don't want to get to a door and then not be able to get out of it. That's actually, if we do have any fires, unfortunately, that's where we find people, is at those exits. And that's the last thing we want to do is to find any fatalities. But also those exits being unblocked, if there is an emergency, and it could be that our guys are going in, our firefighters, and they've got to be able to get out without any issues.
Very good. So the code's not a one and done. They evolve, like you said, with advancements in technology and that sort of thing. But what are some common issues that we're seeing when we're doing these inspections?
So as we talked about, number one is exits being locked or blocked. Nobody has enough storage. That's always an issue. Any business that we go in, even in my house, it seems like there's never enough storage. And so, but it is important to make sure that those exits stay clear at all times, again, for emergencies. And it doesn't have to be just a fire. It could be any type of emergency that you need to quickly get out. So emergency exits, making sure that that they're lit clearly so that you can see to get out. And then also that they're unlocked and unblocked at all times. The next thing that we see a lot is the fire extinguishers not having their annual testing and servicing. People you don't use them. They're kind of out of sight, out of mind. So, but it is important to have those. Again, if you have an emergency, you want it to work. You need to know how to use it, which we do provide free fire extinguisher training if anybody would like that. And then also to ensure that any of the life safety systems have been tested. So that's like your sprinklers and your fire alarms, restaurants, hood systems, that they've all been tested. Usually it's an annual inspection, fire alarm and sprinkler. But then if you have any kind of suppression over in a hood, it could be more often, 3 months, biannually or annually, depending on what's being cooked. And like I said, went over the emergency lights, making sure they're lit. And it's not just your exit signs. It could be emergency lights leading you to the exits. It's important to know how to get out of a building, even if it doesn't have to be a fire. It could just be that all the power went out and you want people to be out safely. And then it's important just common household cleaning, making sure things are out of the aisleways. And then you have a 3-foot clearance around any kind of electrical panels or any kind of heat sources, stuff like that.
So, Chief, you touched on these life safety systems, doing frequent inspections on those. Those are a third-party company, correct, that comes in and does those?
It is, yes, sir. It does have to be somebody that's certified to service and to test those. Again, sprinkler and fire alarm, I'm not an expert on those, but I depend on the certified companies coming in and doing their inspection, and then we look at those reports. And anything that they've noted on there, then we do ensure that those deficiencies are corrected.
Gotcha. So a lot of people don't realize these systems, once they're installed, they're not good for a lifetime. They're, for example, sprinkler systems. They're in metal pipes. You got water and metal. You get corrosion over time. Those things need to be addressed. Fire alarms, smoke detectors can go bad, things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
So now, with the hood systems that you mentioned, I think a lot of people don't realize the cleaning that goes in with that, and it's not just eye level. These systems go all the way to the roof line. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It goes to the roof line and beyond because you got the fans above. So all that has to be cleaned out. Normally, if you have a cleaning company that's coming out, they're going to clean from top to bottom. And that is one of the things that we have seen is that there may be, they're just cleaning at eye level. And sometimes restaurant owners say, well, yes, I've cleaned that. My employees do it every week, which is fantastic. The more cleaning, the better. But you do need a certified company that will climb on the roof and clean from the top down to ensure that even the duct work is clean. Because any of that grease that's sitting there, that's a fire starter waiting.
Very good. That's a very good point. So we want to make sure that we're not having those issues that ultimately ends up with a full response from us with something potentially more dangerous. What about extension cords? I know we've seen a lot of creative uses around extension cords. We see that sometimes in the businesses. Can you touch on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. So an extension cord is meant to be a temporary thing. So what we usually tell people, if you're using an extension cord for, say, a fan, it's good and warmer, and you have a warehouse, you can use it for that fan, but it does need to be unplugged, reeled back up, unplugged on both ends, reeled back up. But it is also supposed to be only plugged into one piece of equipment and then plugged directly into a wall outlet. What we have seen is that they like to use the multi-strips or the surge protectors. They like to plug extension cords into those and then plug in another strip plug or something like that. That you have the potential of overheating that outlet that you're plugging it into. Again, extension cords are great if you need something moved a little bit further, but it is not meant for permanent use.
Very good. So now with extension cords and surge protectors, what about, I know right now it's warm outside, but we see a lot of times heaters being used on extension cords and surge protectors, and while it seems okay that a surge protector should work, it's really not. Is that right?
Yes. So anytime that you have a heater, it does pull a lot of current. So that has to be plugged directly into an outlet. A lot of people think, let's plug it into a surge protector. That's going to be safer. It's really not. It does need to be plugged directly into an outlet because what can happen is it can overheat, and that's where we've seen in the past that the fire has actually been where it's plugged into that surge protector.
Gotcha. So we've kind of touched on these violations. It's mainly about awareness. Is that right, as far as keeping everything safe? So like you said, with the exits, keep them clear, make sure you're checking your extinguishers, getting your system serviced. What if the business is unsure? They're looking at something, they think, well, this could be wrong. Do they wait for us to come out and do our inspection, or what would you recommend for our business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, an inspection is education. That's what we're there for. I know when I first started in the fire marshal's office, that was one of the things that I was told is that people dread us coming because it could cost them money. And so that is one of the things that I've tried my best to instill in all of us in the fire marshal's office is that we are here to help any of the business owners. We're here to educate. And anything that we can do, if we find a violation, we want to try to help correct that violation before we leave. But if it's not, give them some different options of, hey, yes, this is the code violation. This is why it is. But here's some different options that maybe we can look at doing this. We're not there to cost people money. We just want them to be safe. But if they have any questions, absolutely tell them to give us a call. We'd rather come out, look at what you're thinking about doing before you spend money, and then say, well, can't do it quite that way, but can we look at it this way? And then hopefully save some money and lives.
So mainly it's, like you said, education, but there's always options. It's not necessarily, the code doesn't say you have to do it this way. The main thing we want to make sure of, we're preventing fires, but ultimately we want people to get out in the event of a fire, correct?
Absolutely.
So one thing you mentioned was education, and we talk about training. We always say fire safety isn't just about the codes, it's about culture. And so beyond the minimum, what is something businesses can do just to stay fire safe?
Yep, so a fire safe business is one where safety is part of an everyday routine. Staff know the plan and they keep the exits clear and they report any hazards right away. It's not about passing our fire inspection. It's about making sure that everybody goes home safe at the end of the day. And that's, again, the employees, the boss, the customers that are coming in, anybody that may come after.
That's the goal, right? So also there's something we do beyond just codes to help these businesses. We offer training for these businesses. Fire extinguisher training will help with fire drills. You mentioned we'll go out and walk with them on inspections. There's a lot of resources out there for these businesses, correct?
There is, absolutely. All we ask is that you give us a call. Certain businesses, they have to have their fire extinguisher training annually. We can provide that. We can come out and, like the schools, they invite us in to do fire drills. They invite us in to help with lockdowns so that they are better prepared. It's not, they're not asking us to come out and say, hey, well, what are we doing wrong? Or it's what can we do better to better protect those who are coming in and out.
Awesome. So, Chief, before we wrap up, if you could give one final piece of advice to our business owners who want to improve their fire safety, what would you say?
So I'd say don't wait for an inspection to think about fire safety. It should always be in the back of our mind. Take ownership of what's going on, in your businesses today. Walk through your space with a fresh set of eyes, and don't hesitate to give us a call. We'd rather come out beforehand, help you out, than catch something when it's too late.
Gotcha. So that's perfectly said, Chief. And again, if you're in Lexington, we have a lot of resources on our website, and they're actually helpful for those outside the city if they want to take a look at them, different safety tips, fire code tips, because the code is for North Carolina. But we want to give a big thanks to our Fire Marshal, Chief Ryggs, for joining us today. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Josh.
And again, thanks to our listeners for tuning in for another episode of the Fire Marshal Files. And again, if you found today's episode helpful, as always, stay alert, stay informed.